Thank you for listening to the Josh Lacey podcast, Empathetic Warriors. If you like what you heard, or even if you didn't, leave us a review and hit that subscribe button to help us grow. You can also check us out on Instagram at josh.lacy, L-A-C-Y, .podcast. Thank you again. If it weren't for you, our listeners, we couldn't spread these Empathetic Warriors stories. What's going on, everybody? Thanks again for coming and listening to the Josh Lacey podcast. Today, I got an awesome individual, Benjamin Bunn. He's someone that I've followed his path for quite some time. Had an amazing opportunity to get to reconnect with him at the Core Med weekend. What's going on, man?
Hey, how are you? I want to kind of preface this by saying that I don't know if you had planned on talking about this or not, but you had an opportunity to speak at the Core Medical. And Core Medical, I've been a client of theirs for about 5 years, and I had never gone to one of their veteran appreciation weekends, and got a last minute invite by way of Vince Vargas, and he kind of introduced me to Sydney, and Sydney was like, "You got to come out." And I was like, man, I was like coming off of travel. I was like, damn it, like it's going to be like hard to get there. But kind of rearranged some things and moved some pieces around, and was able to make it. And I was just like really floored with everything that they were doing for the veteran community. It was like a large event. There was like 200 people there. And it was just like really incredible, but had a lot of incredible speakers to include you, and you shared your story. And it's like, I think it's like, it's important for people to share their stories, good, bad, or indifferent. And I just like really appreciated it. And I came up and like, thanked you. I was like, yo, man, like, I was like, that was a good story. I was like, not an easy story to tell. And you're up there, telling it. And you were like, hey, listen, like I've followed you for years. I was like, oh my God, and I've, as I've gotten older, I've spent less time on social media. And I have like a very, conservative following, but like back in the day, I would get like kind of recognized here and there. And that just like, that has not happened in so long. I was like, oh, damn. I was like, so I'm flattered that you've been keeping track of me, but was really excited that I had an opportunity to kind of hear you speak in front of such a big crowd. It was awesome.
That means a lot, man. Thank you. Like you said, everybody has a story. It's just if you want to share it or not. And it's amazing how many people, regardless of how big or small your story is, how many people can connect with it. And so thanks for coming on here. Possibly hitting some vulnerable spots. That's what we're about. And hopefully you can help some people out. So
yeah, I hope so.
Let's start out, man, with, well, I guess we'll start out right at the beginning. What was your childhood like? Where were you born? And we'll kind of get into your background as we go on.
It's funny. I was born in a place called Seffner, Florida, and I was talking to some friends yesterday, and somebody had asked me if I'd ever smoked cigarettes, and I was like, well, for sure. I was in the military. I definitely smoked cigarettes.
Yeah,
everybody's smoking cigarettes in the military. It's like, if you don't accept a cigarette that is offered to you in the field, I almost feel like it's a slight, like it's almost like an insult. It's like, why don't you want this cigarette? Are you a communist? But
that or who are you working for? Are you undercover trying to get us in trouble?
Yeah. You're CID or what's going on? You're trying to catch me smoking underage? I don't know. Which is funny because I joined the military at 17, so I was in the Army but not able to purchase cigarettes. For
crazy.
It's wild. Whatever though. I don't even think people that are 27, you shouldn't be able to vote until you're 27. But anyways, we could talk about that separately. But yeah, I mean, I came from like really humble beginnings. My parents got divorced when I was 6, and that inflicted some pretty significant financial hardship on both my mom and my father. I lived in a like I was telling people, to circle back, somebody's asking if you ever smoked cigarettes. I was like, yeah, man, I started when I was 6 years old. I smoked cigarettes when I was 6 years old. Wow. And so like where I grew up, it was like 6-year-olds were smoking cigarettes and mowing lawns and like riding 3-wheelers like down municipal roads, just to give you like an idea. And like, look, like I wasn't like, it wasn't like we were poor. I never like went hungry, but like, we shopped at a scratch and dent stores, and like, our shit got broken into with some amount of frequency, so it's just like, I grew up in a place that was economically depressed. But my mom did a great job, and she was the one I would say primarily raised me, did a great job of ensuring like I never went hungry. I never really missed out on much. But we were just going to like the dollar theater and shopping at scratch and dent places, and like, I couldn't afford cool clothes or, the Reebok pumps or any of this stuff. But that being said, like I had a pretty regular childhood. Didn't have a dad that was kind of on the scene with any amount of regularity. And kind of when he was on the scene, sometimes it wasn't always great. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So kind of that's where I'm coming from. I was raised, mostly by my mom. Had a stepdad come on the scene around the time I was like 9 or 10. And he was a Vietnam era veteran, a retired first sergeant, Puerto Rican guy. Real dark. He was darker than a struck match. He looks like a black man. And as a matter of fact, growing up, I often heard people use the N-word when they were describing him. So it was like weirdly introduced to like racism at a young
Wow.
age because my mom was in I guess what could be considered a biracial marriage. I don't know. He had a couple step kids, but had a really formative upbringing. Even though it kind of started out, really humble beginnings where my mom and I struggled, but she got remarried, and I, both, my dad was on the scene a little bit more as I got older in a way that was a little bit better, but my stepdad did a lot of a great mentoring, and it kind of like introduced me to what it was like to just like like goofy stuff, how to shake hands like an adult, or how to encourage me to talk to girls. It was clear that I was into girls. He wasn't trying to push an agenda on me, wasn't trying to push a cisgendered, agenda on me. But just like regular dad stuff, and that was really great. But him and my mom ended up, I think they're separated, but they're still married because my mom's trying to get that TRICARE. You feel me?
Yeah. Yeah. The benefits.
But he's a good guy, and I still talk to him occasionally.
Okay.
I have a relationship with my father now, but around the time I was 17, right, I was really fresh out of options. I'd gotten into quite a bit of trouble in high school, nothing violent or drug related, but just like general criminal mischief, and didn't have good grades, and had no like blue line path towards anything substantive after high school. And
Wow.
I ended up joining the military at the age of 17. I had to get I joined when I was still in high school. And, with a ship date, shortly after graduation, had to get, permission from both my parents in order to join, and joined when I was 17 years old. It was 2000. I joined in the year 2000. So September 11th had not happened yet. So, I never thought in a million years that I would be, involved in an all-volunteer army in a nation at war. So, obviously that happened a little bit later on, but, pretty normal childhood, running around, mowing lawns,
Okay.
smoking cigarettes. I had keys to my house when I was like 8 years old. I was a latchkey kid, so I had that kind of 80s, 90s kid life, kind of life growing up, no screens
So
or
you
anything.
had a lot of independence as a kid, and you had to learn real quick. Kind of, I mean, it sounds like your stepdad stepped in and your dad as well showed you what manhood was like. But from a
Yeah.
young age, you really had to learn a lot of independency and kind of just figure it out on your own.
Yeah. And I think about that a lot, right? And I look at my son, and he's 5 years old. And when I was 6, I used to like ride my bicycle to a store that was probably like a mile and a half away. And like my mom would like let me mow the lawn when I was 6. I want to be clear. My mom wasn't like out there, cracking a whip on me, making me mow the lawn, but like she would let me take a whack at it. And I think she probably had to like go back and fix what I had done incorrectly. But I would go out there and like, hands up high, pushing the mower, and she would give me $5 for that. And with the $5, I could literally go down to the drugstore, which I think at the time was an Eckerd's, and get a huge bag of candy and like baseball cards and all this stuff. And me and my buddy, Michael Cliggett, at the time, would ride our bicycles down to the drugstore and buy candy with $5. And it was like a mile and a half away, probably.
Isn't that
And I
crazy to
think
think
about
of how
that.
much freedom kids had back then? Like
You,
nowadays, I
you,
wouldn't imagine it. I've got 2 kids, but I could never let them, further than a couple neighbors down. And
oh
I was
my
doing the
God.
same thing, going to grocery stores a mile away. I'm like, hey, we're low on milk. If you want cereal in the morning, go get it tonight. And
Yeah.
it's just crazy.
Yeah, brother, if my kid walked up to me and was like, I'm gonna ride my bike to the store to get some candy because I just mowed the lawn, I'd be like, first off, there's a dude that mows our lawn for us, brother. You know what I mean? Secondly, no, the hell you're not. You know, you're going
Yeah.
nowhere, pal. You
Yeah.
maniac. So you know, it's definitely a different time. And I think a lot of people like kind of like shit on this generation because of that, but like also, you know, my son can like, you know, navigate a tablet or a phone, has like real, you know, probably a more sophisticated approach to handling electronics and stuff like that. And I know like when he's my age, he's gonna have a grasp on things that to me seem like magic, you know. So hey, maybe he doesn't have this expeditionary attitude where he's going to be able to ride a bike down the road, and I wouldn't want him to anyways.
Yeah.
But I'm sure he's got a lot of strengths as a result of growing up in this generation. And
Oh, for
despite,
sure.
yeah, I feel comfortable where he's at. You know what I mean? I feel good about the future for him.
Awesome. So you said you got into some trouble, nothing major, but
Yeah.
running in with the cops. Did
Yeah,
that,
I had like a DA on me. I don't know if you've ever had a district attorney on your ass before, but that's not fun, dude.
I've
All of a
worked with
sudden,
them.
yeah, when there's like 3 or 4 detectives looking into what you're doing, and you got a DA assigned to you, that's bad shit. I didn't know it at the time, you know, but I was like,
So
damn.
we call that a little bit more than just, some run-ins with the cops. We call that, possible record, but it
Yeah,
sounded like you changed that with the influences in your life. Jumped in
yeah,
at the end of high school and said, "Hey, that's not the road I need to go down,"
yeah,
and joined, like you said perfectly, an all-volunteer military.
yeah.
What would you choose the Army?
Man, honestly, I didn't care at the time. I was just, I like my mom worked at the high school where I went, which is interesting because I got in trouble a lot at that school. So I must have been a pain in the ass for her, and I feel bad about it to this day. But um, you know, she was like, "Hey, there's this nice recruiter I know. His name's Terrence Milton," and she was like, "You should go talk to him." And he's an Army recruiter, and I kind of walked up to him, and I was like, "What job has the best bonus?" And he was like, "Hey, no problem, dog." He's like 31 uniform, radio telephone operator. He's like, "That's a $20,000 bonus." And I was like, "Great." I was like, "Where do I sign?" Straight up, where do I sign? Took me, that was on a Thursday. Friday took me to take my ASFAB. Monday took me to go clear through MEPS, and I was swearing in the following Friday after I was able to talk both mom and dad into signing my paperwork.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And so you said that was during high school. Was that so you did all that your senior year?
Yeah, I joined in March 2000. I was still in high school, still had a couple months to go.
How shortly after graduation did you ship off to boot camp?
I shipped off in August, I think, something like that. So I had a
Okay.
couple months to kind of hang out with my friends. And my buddy like owned a laundromat, and I just like hung out at the laundromat, drinking beers in the parking lot, playing PlayStation and kissing girls and all this stuff. Actually, no, I take it back. I was working at a bar called Cherries, and I was dating one of the servers. Her name was Jessica Taylor. She's like married and shit now. But I was like, you know, so I was like hanging out at an old laundromat, dating this girl Jessica, and drinking underage at Cherries as like the busboy slash fry cook. And
Yeah.
it's probably like the best summer I've ever had in my life. It was killer. And then everybody was just like, you know, they would always like, I'd get off my shift and they'd just like give me a red cup full of beer or something and just let me kind of hang out. And they were like, whatever, you're getting ready to ship off for the military, drink beer, have fun, you know.
You can go die for your country. Might as well, enjoy what time you have left.
Might as well, might as. Although it was dying or nothing at that
Well,
time.
that's true.
Yeah,
At
it's
that
a
time.
peacetime moment. But
At
people were
that time.
still,
So
yeah, had a lot of respect for the military.
so you joined. Um, any crazy times in boot camp that you were, not expecting? You had, I wouldn't say a rougher childhood, but you survived a more extensive childhood. Then did that
Yeah,
help or drive, any kind of easiness towards boot
I
camp?
mean, I wasn't like you said, it wasn't like I grew up and I didn't have like some Prince of Tide shit going on in my household. It just, you know, I wasn't privileged, you know, I didn't have a
Yeah.
ton of privilege. Like when people talk about white privilege, I'm like, oh shit, I was not enjoying that at the time. I enjoy it now, but I wasn't enjoying it at the time. I was like, damn, I'm not seeing any of that, dude. This sucks. Trying to get me some of that. But yeah, but when I got to boot camp, basic training, I mean, really, everybody had a similar background to me. It was a bunch of kids that weren't privileged, and they were all just like didn't have options. none of us were the smartest or most successful or the most anything. We just needed additional options. I think most of us were there because we wanted to get away from, whatever small Iowa town we were from, or we needed college money, or we were just kind of fresh out of options, both personally and professionally. So, boot camp was challenging. I was not physically active as a kid. I didn't play ball sports or anything like that. Like if you watch me throw a ball, it's humiliating to this day. So, I wasn't physically active. So when I got to boot camp, you got to like run a mile in under 8.5 minutes in order to get into boot camp. And you got to do a certain amount of push-ups and a certain amount of sit-ups. I like barely made it. Like I ran like a mile in like 8 minutes and 29 seconds and like threw up and passed out afterwards. So basic training was hard for me, and that it was physically demanding, but I got a grip on that. And my AIT was pretty long. It was like 6 or 7 months long. So had an opportunity to get, tons of great training. And then also just like started getting into physical performance around that time. Like it became clear to me that like, if I wasn't able to physically perform, like my continued service in the military would be painful. So like I kind of started around that time getting into physical fitness. I also like looked very different. Like when I came back from basic training, like I looked very different. And everybody was like, holy shit, like you do not look the same, dude. And I was like, kind of liked that, I was like, I saw that it was an opportunity to potentially reinvent myself and sort of embrace that,
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So after boot camp, extensive AIT,
Yeah.
how long did you do your, I guess, contract job of, and I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with the Army term, the radio operator?
Dude, a while, like all the way through all the way until almost 2004, really. So I deployed in the initial invasion to Iraq, and it was kind of like goofy.
I guess pause. So let's rewind, because now I'm thinking about your timeline. Shortly after you got out of AIT, 9/11 happens.
9/11 happens, and I was like at a community college at the time, and I was considering going into ROTC, and was actually attending ROTC classes. Like I'd been there for like a semester, and I was getting ready to go to algebra, which I didn't like. And I was like in this small cafeteria drinking a big stupid cup of nasty coffee, big old 20-ounce hot coffee. And I remember a guy, I remember his name was De Grando. It was his last name, which in Spanish means the great one. He was good at playing chess. I still remember him. He was kind of an acquaintance of mine. And he goes, yo, man, a plane just ran into the Twin Towers. And what was interesting, not a lot of people remember this, but like a few months previous, a biplane had ran into the World Trade Center. Some guy, like some weirdo, had just ran into the World Trade Center in a biplane, like an American, dummy. And I was like, damn, not again. I was like, is he dead? And not realizing it had been a commercial airliner. And then as I was standing in the cafeteria, this small little cafeteria, I saw the second plane hit the towers. And I was like in uniform, getting ready to go to algebra and then ROTC. And I was like, oh my God, like I'm going to war, which never occurred to me when I initially had joined the military. But obviously, like all Americans at that point, I was completely incensed and, wanted to do whatever I could. And I did not have to wait long. My unit was activated shortly thereafter, and we ended up participating in the initial invasion into Iraq.
Wow. So that happens. How long after 9/11 happened did you put boots on the ground?
Oh, God. I guess it was almost a full year, to be honest with you. I mean, like it was kind of, it seemed like it happened much faster than it did. And when you're younger, a year is a long time. I mean, now if somebody told me like, hey, a year from now, you're going to be in Iraq, I'd be like, shit, I got to start preparing now, But yeah, like, everybody started getting activated. I was in a field artillery unit at a time, and then got pulled into a light infantry unit because they like needed more light infantry people. They were like, I don't think this is going to be an MLRS battle. They were like, this is probably going to be done with infantry. Yeah. So ended up getting kind of pulled into a light infantry unit, and ended up getting pulled into like their scout platoon, which was kind of goofy. So I was like working both with the scouts and the mortars at the time. and like
Okay.
ended up really not doing much of my job. Like they were just like, hey, these guys need a radio guy. But the scouts and mortars at that time in the initial invasion had been like kind of, they just did odd jobs in the battalion. But either which way, we spent a short amount of time getting trained up at Fort Stewart. During that time frame, I had an opportunity to go to a couple schools where I did kind of good. And then next thing you know, I was like in the initial invasion. Like spent a little bit of time in Kuwait, and the next thing you know, I was like driving up, through the Tigris River, Al Ramadi,
Wow.
Balad Air, Balad Air Base, or I don't think it was Balad. Damn, I can't even remember it anymore. It was so damn long ago. It was almost 20 years. I guess it was 20 years ago. But yeah, like, had an opportunity to drive all the way up from Kuwait into Baghdad. And then we made our home in Baghdad at what was their equivalent of an officers club. It was like right across the street from where their MEPS building was. They had like a MEPS building or equivalent in central
Yeah.
Baghdad that they burned to the ground. But the officers club, they kind of ransacked it. But our battalion, like that's where they like made their headquarters, was an officers club. And I like slept in the third floor of the officers club in central Baghdad for the better part of a year.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
So you weren't always a radio operator, obviously, from needs of the Army.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to make the switch over to Green Beret?
So, after my deployment to Iraq, like a lot of guys had like a really tough time with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, like, listen, I'm not over here saying that I was over there like crushing it or anything. Like I was just an absolute commando, but, like, I don't know, like I machine gunned some people to death and this kind of dumb shit, got awards for it and all this great stuff. And it just seemed like I just was having a little bit of an easier time with everything.
Okay.
And,
That was just after the first deployment you realized that.
yeah, and and it was like kind of wild, like dudes in Bradleys are driving over people's cars, and it was just kind of bedlam, like we destroyed their entire infrastructure, so the whole like it was just chaos everywhere. And like I don't want anybody to get the impression that we were all just in a rolling gunfight 24/7 or anything crazy like that. But but what did happen is it was just really chaotic and it was kind of crazy. And I honestly, like, I was like, damn, this is like the most interesting thing I've ever done. And a lot of times, even though I missed home dearly, and there was a lot like, like during the initial invasion, guys were like eating one MRE and drinking a liter of water a day, like crazy crap. I didn't take a shower for 3 months. That was all, patently terrible. Don't get it twisted. I did not enjoy any of that shit. But like, in hindsight, I was like, damn, this was like the coolest thing I've ever done. And when I got back home, people sort of treated me like a hero. Obviously, I liked that. Who the hell doesn't like that? And I know it's like, you want to be humble and everything, but at the same time, I'm like, whatever, dude, that was awesome. Like I had a
You
great
just
time.
served you have a sense of
Yeah. Yeah. And people were
boundaries now.
treating me great. And, back in the day, I was like a fucking bum, so it was like pretty rad to, just like have purpose and be treated like I had accomplished something. So I really enjoyed that. And I got the inkling that I probably needed to kind of dive down the rabbit hole, so to speak. I did take a temporary gig contracting. And went back to Iraq as a contractor working with Academy, which is like kind of like or excuse me, it was Triple Canopy at the time, later became Academy. I don't even know if it exists anymore. Did that for a little bit in Solder City. But like during that time frame was like kind of talking to a special forces recruiter with 20th Special Forces Group.
Oh,
And then
so you did, sorry to interrupt, you did your first enlistment and then got out.
yeah, no, so technically I was in the at that time I was in the National Guard.
Oh,
Um
okay.
so I came back home after that deployment, which I think lasted about 15 months, give or take. 15 months in country. And then or I think it was 13 months in country, somewhere around there.
Okay.
But came back home, was in the National Guard at that point, and kind of was just like still in in a goofy local unit, but then took a job as a contractor in Iraq, and then spent some time downrange as a contractor, which was okay, and I spent time in like Balad, and this is like around the time like super fobs started coming around and things were getting a little bit more,
Yeah.
organized. But spent some time in Solder City, and nothing was organized in Solder City. That place was an absolute mess, I think. And I was on this place I think was called Camp Hope. And I think maybe previous to that it was called Camp Cuervo or something like that. But like, man, I remember one day we took like 81 rounds of indirect in one day. You know what I mean? It was
Wow.
Yeah, it's nuts, dude. So like everybody like slept in bunkers and this kind of crap. So that was pretty shitty. But you know, still like after that, I was even like, no, I'm fine with this. You know what I mean? And I'd been talking to a special forces recruiter, and they were like, hey, like you know, there's no issue, but you need to like come back home and you need to participate in our program to get trained up so that you can go to selection. I was like, all right. So I quit the job as a contractor and came back home so that I could pursue, you know, going into the special forces and becoming a Green Beret.
Now, did you feel like before you went to National Guard, went contracting, did you have any aspirations of doing special forces at all, or did that contracting gig kind of assist you in making that decision, that final decision of like, hey, I really am okay going above and beyond, doing the extra hard stuff?
You know, I think everybody when they're like young talks that shit. You know what I mean? About like wanting to do that kind of stuff. Why wouldn't you? Right? You know what I mean?
Yeah, those are guys.
Yeah. What are we doing? You know what I mean? It's like I don't think anybody's like, I want to join the military, and honestly, I just want to like, you know, I want to do my 4 years as an admin clerk and get the hell out and get some college money. Actually, I think there are people that do that. And like, dude, respect if that's what's going on. But I think a lot of young men and women like join the military, and once they see that it's operates somewhat as a meritocracy, they're like, dude, I want to do the hard thing. I want to do the good stuff. And
Yeah.
honestly, at that point, I was, you know, hadn't gone to Iraq. I lost some friends in Iraq, you know, but pretty early on, and saw a lot of people get hurt really bad. And I was like, I wanted some get back. And, you know, and I remember my girlfriend at the time, and I was like probably like still a teenager, dude, sitting on the edge of her bed. And I remember telling her, I remember saying it out loud. I was like, I'm going to join the special forces. I can do this. And granted, at this time, I don't even think I could do 50 fucking push-ups. You know what I'm saying? But I was just like telling her, I was sitting on the edge of the bed, but I said that shit out loud. You know what I mean? I was like, I'm going to do this, you know?
Yeah, you need to voice that sometimes.
Yeah, man. So I spoke my truth, and I was like, this is what I wanted to do. And I'm here to tell you, there are a lot of people that were not rooting for me, did not think I was going to have the ability to join the special forces. Joke's on you. So, you know, but like I came back after that second, you know, when I was that second time being in Iraq, and I came back and had a chance to be in the NQP program in 20 Special Forces Group, stands for non-qualified personnel. You like go and have these like gnarly drills where they just torture your ass for about 4 days. It was a great time. At the time, there was this guy, Sergeant Major Dan Kinkle, who's in charge of the NQP program, and a lot of other great guys who had great combat experience, and dudes that were just like fantastic at their jobs, physically fit, smart. And I was like, dude, I want to be exactly like these guys. I trained up for a few months and went to selection in September of 05, I think. Either September 04 or 05. And I think 05. And made it through on my first try. I went with a bunch of good friends. I'm still friends with most of them to this day. Some of them aren't alive anymore, but the ones that are, I'm still good friends with. One's kind of a spook. He's like a ghost. Like nobody even has his goddamn phone number. But I went with this like group of like 4 or 5 guys, and we're all still in touch with each other to this day. And some of us are good friends at each other's weddings and stuff like that. But made it through selection on my first try. I think we had like 450 people in my class. 120 made it to the end. And I think only half of that 120 got selected to go on and attend the Special Forces qualification course. And out of the people that attend the Special Forces qualification course, from that number, maybe only half of them make it through the entire course. So, the course is hard. Took me a year to get through, and I got graduated from the Special Forces qualification course and like immediately got out and went on another deployment. It was like back in Iraq. So it was just like, yeah. Wow. So it was like, and I mean, I spent that entire, I'd say like probably from like 02 to like 07, I probably spent equal time like in the Middle East versus the United States. And at one point in time, I might have been tipping more towards the Middle East, where I'd actually spent more time in Iraq / Afghanistan than I had in the United States, which was interesting.
So you really spoke your future into fruition, and then just conquered it. I mean, there was no looking back, no second guesses, no anything.
And I had like, looking back on it, I put all my eggs in that basket. Like I remember thinking to myself, I was like, if I don't make this, like I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like I just like I really had pushed all my chips into that and like betted hard on that. It panned out. I know it doesn't for everybody, and like that's okay too. But yeah, like I was serious about it. Like I was like, dude, I'll die if I don't make it, you know? And so I really had this all or nothing mentality, and I wanted it really bad. But when I finally made the decision to do it and started training around people that also wanted to do it, like I was like, I'm gonna do this. Like nothing's gonna stop me from doing
Would
this.
you say that was your sole driving factor, or was there anybody that kind of influenced you? I know you said your stepdad was a Vietnam vet. Um, did his drive kind of influence you or anything, or was it just you realized after you came home from boot camp you felt a certain way, and then you got to go serve your country in another special way, and it just kind of built on its own, or what was your driving factor behind that? Because it's no easy feat. You hear it all the time, guys that go through selection. Fail's a hard word, but don't make it, and then have to go back and possibly don't make it a second time. You just stuck it through the first time.
Yeah. Honestly, like man, if I'm being, truthful, Josh, like I did it because I didn't like who I was, you know. I didn't I didn't feel like I was popular. I didn't feel like I was smart. I didn't feel like I was strong. I felt like a coward. I felt like I wasn't good at anything. And I felt like joining the special forces was like a real opportunity for like me to like reinvent myself and like show everybody that I could be like a man, that I was brave. Honestly, what I wanted people to think I was a hero, That is what it boiled down to. I don't, and like that's probably not like fashionable to say, but like I didn't like who I was, and I didn't have anything going for me. And I was like, I'm okay at this army shit. And I was like, and if I can be the best in the army, like people will, because I was kind of near do well growing up, always getting in trouble. Everybody's like, oh man, he's not like going to go to college or nothing. And I didn't like that feeling. And I thought the military and the special forces was an opportunity for me to reinvent myself. And that's what I wanted, because I didn't like who I was. And
And
I did.
I want to emphasize, there's probably a lot of people that will even listen to this that say, "Oh, you shouldn't view yourself as a hero or anything like that." But we all do something for a certain reason, and
Yeah.
if it's whether to be looked at as a hero, I mean, you look at people that join law enforcement or firefighters or nurses, do it for either to save the community, help people, or like they want to rebrand their name, and
Yeah.
people view you as one way, and all of a sudden you're like, hey, I put this uniform on, I am a different person, whether it's the uniform that made you do it or not. And I feel hero like, growing up,
Yeah.
you always looked up to those people. Like you said it perfect. As a kid, everybody wants to, join special forces. Maybe not
Yeah.
everybody, but you see those guys and they're true heroes to you. And when you make it, you're like, I've accomplished something.
Yeah, I'm here. But like, little did I know that process of reinventing yourself, and like wanting more and wanting to be better, man, it's just that is nonstop.
Yeah,
So
it's
I
never
thought
ending.
like, yeah, it's never ending. And I thought like, when I became a Green Beret, that would be it. And honestly, like a lot of Green Berets, like, dude, it takes a certain kind of guy to do that. Some of them are goddamn villains. You know what I mean? And I'm here to tell you, I did not nice shit to people when I was a Green Beret. Stuff, looking back on it, now that I'm older, I'm in my 40s, and I'm married. I have a wife I love, and I have a child that I'm trying to teach to be a good kid, and hopefully one day a great man. And like I look back and I'm proud of my service, but I'm not proud of all the things I did, man. I hurt people. I hurt people bad. And some of them didn't even have it coming. You know what I'm saying? But that was just the nature of warfare at the time. And I look back on it. Like I said, I have no regrets about my service. And if I could go back in time, I'd have done everything probably exactly the same way.
I
But,
read a
look,
statistic at one point that said they did a study of the mental kind of side of the military from all different,
yeah,
MOSs, special forces, all the way to admin and everything. And they found that special forces um, personnel have a higher psychopathic tendency and traits than everybody else. But they said it's not in a bad way.
yeah,
You guys have to do certain things to bad people, and it's almost a gift. And after you're done, you might feel like it's a curse because, hey, some of the, like you said, some of those guys might not have qualified for the treatment that they got, but at the
hey,
same time, you're in a certain place doing a certain thing, and you know the ramifications that are going to happen.
yeah.
And
It's like, it's like, they knew the rules and so did I, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? We were all
Yeah.
there doing the same stuff. And like I said, and you're right, like I think if you're going to be in special operations, if you're going to be in a job where you have to, use calculated or controlled violence, like, boy, howdy, you better be able to compartmentalize that, because the guys that can't, the gals that can't, I would submit have a bad time, and then and potentially didn't use that well, right, and
Yeah.
might have spilled off into their private lives,
But you also put your fellow counterparts' lives at stake if you don't have that mentality, because
yeah,
you all are out there to do a specific mission. And if one guy's questioning something, that split second of questioning can mean life or death.
yeah. I've spent a lot of time thinking about it, right? And I'm proud of my service, and I'm really proud of the service of the people that I served with. But like I look back on it, and this is what I've taken away from it. Like I said, I'm proud of my service, but boy, howdy, I think war is really rough, and people get hurt. You know what I'm saying? And the people that pay the price when nations are at war, they're not politicians and kings and presidents, but it's usually guys and gals that come from economically depressed areas of their nations, or in worst case scenario, people that are just conscripted. They don't even have a choice. I
Yeah.
volunteered for it, but so it's the poor, and it's the downtrodden that end up paying the price. But that said, like, man, I love my country. I love the United States. Everybody wants to be American. You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody wants to be American. Everybody wants to move here and make it.
I mean, look, we got people coming in across the borders left
Oh
and right
man,
because this is the best country in the world. I
the
mean,
best
we,
country in
we,
the world.
we could argue it all day, and at the end of the day, you still have people, not getting vetted, coming through the systems properly just because they want to live in a better place.
Yeah. Hey, listen, if you look outside, like, what's right out front of the pyramids of Giza? A Pizza Hut, brother, an American franchise. You know what I'm saying? If I walk out the Empire State Building, I don't see an Egyptian franchise sitting outside of that shit. And that's because nobody gives a shit about Egypt, dude. But people give a shit about America. People want to eat pizza. They want to drink Starbucks. They want to see American movie stars. They want to come here and open up a laundromat, or have a Chick-fil-A franchise, and become a millionaire. And brother, there is no other country. And listen, here's something else. Look, I I could go to France and live there for 20 years. I could get a French passport. I could speak the language fluently. I got news for you. Nobody will ever call me French. Nobody will ever call me French. I am not French. But you could come here after a year, get your visa, have a job, open a business, not even speak English. And people will look at you and be like, that dude's American. That's an American. You know what I
That's in
mean?
America.
He's
Yeah.
living here. He's got employees. He pays taxes. His kids go to our schools. That joker's American. You know what I mean? And that is unique. That is unique.
It's a special
Everybody wants
place.
that shit, everybody.
So I guess, how long did you do in special forces?
I did it, I guess, for the better part of a decade. I transitioned out around 2011 after I got my degree at the University of Tampa, and then finished my my time out as an infantry officer. I had another deployment to Afghanistan. Then that was actually probably some of the most crazy, not super bad. It wasn't like, I don't want to make it out like I was in some kind of crazy goddamn gunfight the entire time or nothing. But I will say this: I saw some of the most determined fighters ever during that deployment. I was in disbelief. I mean, you could have a platoon size element against like 4 or 5 dudes, and they'd be like, they would fight to the death. It was crazy as hell. I have a lot of respect for the Afghan. But that was my last deployment. It was around 2012, 2013, and then I got out around 2016. Got out a little bit early, not too dissimilarly from Cody Alford, another one of the homies that's been on the podcast. Was able to get out a little bit early, retire a little early, and have then got out into the private sector and opened up a CrossFit gym, and then of course have been involved in various other entrepreneurial pursuits.
Nice. So after you got out, what was that transition like? I mean, it's not easy going from living life as a kid like you did, joining the military, running up through the ranks, and joining special forces. You get out. I mean, it seems like the world stops. right?
Yeah, I had a soft landing. I had a soft landing,
Okay.
man. I opened up a CrossFit gym, real original, but still own it and operate it to this day.
And you
You
see a
know,
lot of those come and go. I mean, that says a lot about your mindset and your drive to stay successful. I mean, you were successful in your military career, and that obviously transitioned over to the afterlife.
yeah, yeah, it did, and I had to work really hard at it. I spent my entire life savings at the time. I think I had like 170K saved up. I spent everything. I spent about 150K, put it into the gym, maxed out a couple credit cards, really took a big gamble. Started the business with a guy I went to college with. I'm still friends with him to this day, but I bought him out in 2018, around the same time I was getting ready to have a kid. It was tough, but I got really lucky because being an entrepreneur is hard and takes a lot of time and effort,
It does.
but keeping myself busy in that way, having to work long days at the gym was really helpful for me because it gave me a sense of purpose, it gave me a mission, all this stuff. And I also had a weird opportunity where it like built a community around me. Like, cause all that, and what's weird is like we were at a bachelor party this past weekend in Fort Lauderdale. I don't know if you've ever been to Fort Lauderdale. It sucks. So,
I have not,
but
by the way.
yeah, man, it's the worst. So I was down there for a bachelor party, and everybody was like, there was a bunch of us that were from Tampa, and they were like, "How do all you guys know each other?" And everybody was like, "Ben owns a gym that we all went to." And I can't tell you how many times I've been in like a social event, and I was like looking around, I was like, "God damn, how do all these people know each other? Like, what got us all here?" And I was like, "It's my gym. It's my gym." So I got really lucky where I had
That's
this
amazing, by the way.
yeah, I just like built this thing that gave me community, gave me friends, and or provided me with it, gave me this mechanism. And out of all the stuff that I do, all my different entrepreneurial pursuits, working in consumer product goods and startups, and I'm the executive deputy director for veteran nonprofit, all this stuff. My
What's that
gym is still
nonprofit, by the way? We'll get
Warrior
into that.
Rising. Warrior Rising is a veteran nonprofit that specializes in helping transitioning veterans start their own businesses. Started
Wow.
around 2015. I didn't get on board with them until like 2021, late 2021, early 2022. They initially asked for my help with marketing. At the time, I had been working in startup industries, specifically consumer product goods, and worked for and still work for a company called Bravo Sierra, which makes men's care products, native military men's products. Helped launch an energy drink called Echelon. I've been helping these gentlemen start a distilled spirits organization or company called Cold Zero, which makes whiskey, vodka, stuff like that. But they approached me and they're like, "Hey, man, like we need help with marketing." And I was like, "Dude, I don't know how to do that. I don't know anything about marketing." But they like kept asking me, so I was like, "Fine, I'll just do it. I'll do it, and we'll see how it goes." Did really well. Did really well at marketing. Marketing and brand management are kind of the same thing, but eventually moved into business development and fund development for them. And
Okay.
recently was named the second in command or the deputy executive
Wow.
director. Believe it or not,
Congratulations, by the
I'm
way.
starting a podcast in April, so I probably could use a couple tips from you. So, but a
Hey,
podcast for the veteran nonprofit.
yeah, I'm just starting out, so any tips and tricks I have will definitely be passed on. But you definitely have the right mindset for sure.
Yeah, we need to trade notes for sure. It's good support.
So you get out and you open the CrossFit, which I feel could have been like a lifesaver because a lot of veterans get out, I feel like, and they feel isolated or either they isolate themselves. And
I did though. I
that
still had a
community
lot of
aspect,
problems.
though.
Yeah, I had a lot of problems, and looking back at it, I was probably abusing alcohol a little bit. I wasn't like drinking a 30 rack a day or anything like that. But when I did drink, I drank to excess, and then would feel depressed for days after the fact. And then, of course, when I was drinking, I was making poor decisions personally. Whether I was seeking out relationships with women that weren't appropriate or toxic, or neglecting my personal life or my friends and family, like so. And the way I kind of got around it was kind of dual fold. One, I had an opportunity to speak to a VA appointed therapist and I spoke to that individual regularly for like 2.5 years. And two, like I got in a relationship with a great woman, my wife, you know what I'm saying? And she expected a lot out of me, and we have a real partnership, and that partnership includes like real partnerships mean accountability, you know?
It's
And
crazy
so,
what a good woman, when they walk into your life at the right time, how they can
yeah,
change you. My wife did the same thing for me. I had
yeah,
those expectations, but all of them were emphasized by love and compassion. There was no
yeah.
judgment. And when that
Really,
happened,
like she wants me to succeed. Like no questions asked. Like me doing well means she's doing well. So it's like she's really looking out for me. So, you know, a combination of like having, you know, good male friends who I look up to and hold me accountable. And it's not like they're like knocking on my door and be like, I'm making sure you're not shit faced. But like if you got like good male friends and like you're coming off rails, they're like, yo, dude, like what is
hey,
going
check
on?
yourself in
Yeah,
a
what is up?
loving way.
Bro? You know, like you seem like a shitbird right now because they're successful individuals. And like you can't be hanging out with successful folks thinking you're gonna scoop by being a shitbird. So like combination of like structured therapy, good friends, good long lasting friends, some of which I've had for like 10, 20 years, and a great partner in my wife have like helped me like really be the most successful version of myself. I love who I am right now. I
That's
love my
amazing.
family. I love my son. I love my life. I love what I do in business, and I love what I do personally. And it's all about the people I've surrounded myself with, you know?
So from your childhood to now, was there like a specific pivotal moment that you felt like you changed um, to be the person that you like or today?
There's been a couple. I think one
Yeah.
was when I got the Green Beret. I think one was when I got a commission as an officer and started leading young men with guns as opposed to just being a guy on a team that was fucking shit up.
So
Um,
you were both enlisted and officer.
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So I think being an officer gave me an opportunity to see what it meant to lead young men. And that there was a lot more responsibility, and I loved that job. I was a PL in Afghanistan. It's the best job I've ever had. I liked it more than being in the special forces. Um, when I got out and started my own business, that was a big deal. Becoming a father really lit a fire under my ass and made me want to be very successful
I love
personally.
hearing that.
Yeah. And then, of course, getting married, you know, to my wife and knowing she's like, yo, and like, you know, Jason, you know, Redmond, he talks about this. Yo, we don't even talk shit about like the word divorce or separation doesn't come up in this household. Like, this is a partnership. Like we're in business together, and our business is to like raise good humans and to take care of each other. So I think, you know, there's been pivotal points along the way. Some of
Man,
it
you know that
military.
you hit that last statement you made. I also heard Jason talk about that
Yeah.
during the Core Med weekend, but it's something I wish more couples implemented. My wife and I, it's almost like the taboo word. We don't say the D word. No, nobody says divorce in
Okay.
our house. If you're tired of me, you better go to sleep and wake up because
Yeah.
need some rest because I'm still going to be here through thick and thin. Not only because of the love, care, and compassion that she showed me from our relationship, but it's not an option. Like it shouldn't be. When you invest in somebody with like you have, it it's a commitment till the end.
Yeah, and like, and I, you know, you know, same thing. It's like, hey, we're having a bad time today. All right, well, like, listen, maybe it's just gonna be a quiet night in the household, but like tomorrow it's back to business. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
got a business to run, and the business is our life, our family, our home, like all the things that we have, and like that takes maintenance, you know, and it takes effort. And like to your point, man, it's like, you know, look, and I spent, you know, I've been with my wife for almost 6 years, been married for over a year. But you know, we spent time like she put in a lot of hard time, you know, with me. She's a great stepmother to our son. You know, that we share through a blended family, and she's put in time, effort, and put up with my shit. Like and listen, and I just know like if it weren't for having her in my life, I would just not be as capable or successful. You can get that on record. So she could play that one day if we try and get a divorce. She'll for sure get half my shit.
Hey,
There's
careful. She's gonna play that on loop. So when you
yeah.
when you mess up, you're like, hey, remember what you said.
Yeah, and listen, she would deserve it. She would deserve it because she helped build everything that I have today. And I really do think that like being able to, you know, get the government involved legally in our relationship by way of marriage was a big turning point for me. And it's made me a better man, and it's made me a better father. It's made me a better business owner. It's like she's my partner in crime, you know. So it's I think it's a big thing. I think it's a big deal for any man or woman. You know, it doesn't matter. I don't care if you're getting married to another dude, you're a dude, however that works. But like, you know, picking somebody that you're going to have a personal partnership with longitudinally, that's a big deal, man. That's a big deal in any person's life, and I think it's an important part of becoming an adult.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, you hit again the nail on the head. You just
Yeah.
driving points home. So you've been through the ringer. I mean, from childhood till now, creating success every step of the way, always taking that forward progress, always moving forward. I guess now, where do you see yourself going? You said you got a couple opportunities in the near future with some projects going on, but
honestly, like I really enjoy, I love my gym. I'm gonna hold on to that for as long as I can because it's just helped me build a great community. It gives me an opportunity to affect my local community. I think that's very, very important to being involved at the local level. I've got a couple great entrepreneurial pursuits with business partners, both from the military and in the private sector. And of course, and honestly, I'm hoping to partner more frequently with Core Medical just as a result of all that. Like now that I've had an opportunity to see the good that they're doing in the veteran community, that's a big deal to me. And I want to see if there's a way that I can get involved and kind of help them have a big and positive impact in the veteran community. But for me, I want to find balance in my life. Me and my wife want to start trying to have a kid here in like the next 6 months. So we're about to be on man defense with my 5-year-old and this other kid coming around. But I want to raise good, well-behaved kids that are going to become great adults. I don't need to be rich or anything like that, but I want to have a lifestyle where I can just work out hard every day, spend good time with my family, raise good kids, and be, a valued and respected member of my community. I think those things, and that, man, you don't have to have a lot of money to do those things. Don't get me wrong, though. It helps, and I can get some New York strips from Costco with that money. I can buy a nice Traeger grill with that shit.
Without a doubt in my mind, I know that with all the life lessons you've gone through and taught yourself and learned from your past, your son is going to be an amazing young man. And when you bring your next child into this world, they're going to be just as equally as impressive because you've really laid an amazing foundation. And it says a lot about you. Seeing your weaknesses so early on as a young adult, 17 years old, a lot of us, including myself, think, oh, I'm good. I'm untouchable. But the fact that you want to progress, change, you saw change, but still wanted more, that's a rare trait in a man that's raising a family. So
I appreciate it.
That's stellar, man. I guess to wrap it up, and I end this with everybody, the one piece of advice you would give the listeners that's either implemented change in your life or you've thought about that you wanted to start implementing to create more change in a positive manner.
The thing that I do, this is the thing that I do every single day that has served me well for like the past 20 years. And I think has just made me better at everything. And it's to exercise. I know that seems so innocuous, but like, dude, you just gotta get out there, even if it's only for 20 minutes, even if it's only for 20 minutes, even if it's only for 10 minutes, get around and move around every single day. Listen, like, do not get it twisted. Like there's who I'm getting ready to drive in a car to my work, listening to music that's just being like zapped into my vehicle. Like we're the most dangerous creatures on this planet. Lions, tigers, bears, sharks, whatever, dude. They're all on the verge of extinction, probably as a result of us. We are the most dangerous creatures on this goddamn planet. We're the most adaptable things on this planet. And we have the ability inside of us to do amazing things, deadlift, whether it's deadlifting 500 pounds, creating a podcast that impacts the lives of veterans across the country, or, even if it's just getting a 9-to-5 and taking great care of your family. But, I have found that if you can get up and get around and move every single day, it just makes everything easier and better. It makes everything easier and better. Also, you should really learn to use Microsoft Excel. It makes you seem like a sorcerer in the professional sector.
Opposite of the spectrum, but hey, that advice right there. When you go into any kind of workforce and you're the one that knows how to use that software,
It's like being a wizard. It's like being a
yeah,
wizard.
it is. It is.
Yeah.
Well, hey, thank you so much, man, for being on here, giving us some amazing stories, some sound knowledge, and I wish you nothing but success and amazingness in your future to come.
I sure do appreciate it, Josh. I can't thank you enough for having me on today.
Hey, thank you, Bunn.
All right, big guy.